The crowd was already restless when Bone Thugs-n-Harmony finally hit the stage. It was a hot summer night at an outdoor festival in front of thousands of fans who had been drinking, smoking, and shouting for hours. The set was running late, tempers backstage were short, and the group, one of the most legendary hip-hop collectives of the 1990s, wasn't exactly walking out in perfect harmony. When the lights dimmed and the first notes of Thuggish Ruggish Bone rumbled through the speakers, the audience erupted. For a moment, everything felt right. 5 brothers from Cleveland reunited, doing what they did best. But anyone close to the stage could feel it. Something was off. The group wasn't vibing the way they normally did. Their timing felt jagged. Eye contact was rare. A few minutes into the set, small arguments were already breaking out between verses. The real spark came during Look Into My Eyes. Bizzy Bone, always the most unpredictable of the crew, stepped to the mic late, missing his cue. Lazy Bone shot him a glare sharp enough to cut glass. Crazy Bone tried to wave it off, but the tension didn't fade. By the time they reached Notorious Thugs, Bizzy and Lazy were shouting at each other mid-song. The audience thought it was hype, 2 brothers amping each other up. But backstage, crew members knew the truth. They were seconds away from throwing hands. And then it happened. Near the middle of the set, after another miscue and a snatched mic, Bizzy shoved Lazy hard enough that security instinctively moved forward. Lazy fired back, and for a surreal moment, 2/5 of Bone Thugs-n-Harmony, the group that once blended voices so perfectly they changed hip-hop harmony forever, were squaring up to fight on stage, in full view of thousands of fans. Crazy tried to step between them. Flesh and Bone grabbed at Lazy's arm, and Wishbone barked at Bizzy to cool it down. But Bizzy wasn't hearing it. He tossed the mic to the ground, cursed his brothers out, and stormed off stage. The music cut, the lights wavered, and the audience buzzed with confusion. Some thought it was a stunt. Others knew they just witnessed a family imploding in real time. The seeds of that fight were planted long before that night. Bone Thugs-n-Harmony were childhood friends who came up hard in Cleveland's East 99th neighborhood, bonded by poverty, music, and ambition. When Eazy-E discovered them in 1993 and signed them to Ruthless Records, they went from struggling street kids to platinum-selling stars almost overnight. But success didn't erase their demons, it just put them under brighter lights. Bizzy, the youngest of the crew, had survived childhood abuse, kidnapping, and a life of instability before Bone Thugs took off. He was brilliant, gifted with a voice that could sound angelic even while spitting rapid-fire verses about street life. But he was also volatile, deeply emotional, and increasingly self-destructive. Alcohol, weed, and later harder substances amplified his mood swings. He missed shows, clashed with management, and sometimes disappeared without explanation. Lazy, often the de facto leader of the group, carried the weight of keeping the crew together. Where Bizzy was free-spirited, Lazy was organized and disciplined. That dynamic, creativity versus control, caused friction for years. Lazy felt Bizzy wasn't pulling his weight. Bizzy felt Lazy treated the group like a business instead of a brotherhood. By the early 2000s, industry pressure made it worse. After Eazy-E's death in 1995, Bone Thugs struggled with label politics, money issues, and declining radio support. Ruthless Records wasn't the powerhouse it once was, and the group's once united front began to fracture. Solo projects pulled members in different directions. Substance abuse took its toll, not just on Bizzy, but on Flesh and Bone too, who served prison time on weapons charges. Behind closed doors, fights over money, missed shows, and personal respect became routine. By the time they hit that festival stage, years of bottled-up anger were ready to explode. According to people who were there that night, the show was doomed before it started. Bizzy had shown up late to soundcheck, if he showed up at all. Lazy was furious. Crazy tried to keep everyone calm, reminding them that fans had paid to see a classic Bone Thugs set. But in the dressing room, Bizzy and Lazy's words got sharp. Lazy told Bizzy to get his head right or get off the stage. Bizzy fired back that Lazy was acting like his boss instead of his brother. By showtime, no one was smiling. The first few songs went smoothly enough, but every little mistake made the tension worse. Bizzy rapped over Lazy's verse. Lazy cut Bizzy's mic time short. What should have been natural chemistry felt forced. Crazy tried to hold it together by powering through hooks, but the energy kept unraveling. The breaking point came when Bizzy stopped mid-verse to say something off-mic to Lazy, something angry enough that Lazy shoved him as the beat played on. Bizzy shoved back. A few fists swung before Crazy, and Wish dragged them apart. Security swarmed the stage. The music screeched to a halt. And Bizzy Bone, tired of fighting his own brothers, walked straight into the night without looking back. Fans stood stunned, chanting, "Bone Thugs! Bone Thugs!" while the remaining members tried to calm the crowd and finish the set as a four-man crew. But everyone in the venue knew something historic had just gone down. One of the most influential rap groups in history had publicly fallen apart. For months after that show, Bone Thugs looked finished. Bizzy stopped touring with the group entirely. Interviews turned hostile. Lazy implied Bizzy was unreliable. Bizzy fired back that Lazy was controlling and didn't respect his artistry. Rumors flew. Was Bizzy officially out? Was Bone Thugs and Harmony breaking up for good? Industry insiders weren't surprised. Years of label disputes, creative differences, and personal demons had worn them thin. Bizzy's substance abuse issues got worse, and Lazy buried himself in work, recording, and touring without him. The brotherhood that once seemed unshakable looked broken beyond repair. But even in the middle of that storm, there was love. Crazy Bone stayed in touch with Bizzy, urging him to get help and reassuring him that Bone was still family. Wish Bone, quiet but loyal, refused to take sides. Flesh and Bone, fresh out of prison and trying to rebuild his own life, wanted peace more than anyone. It took years, but time has a way of softening grudges. Bizzy eventually got sober and began to rebuild relationships with his brothers. Lazy admitted publicly that he'd been too hard on Bizzy at times. Bizzy admitted he hadn't been dependable. Slowly, through phone calls, studio sessions, and family meetings away from the cameras, they began to repair what fame and pressure had broken. By the late 2010s, Bone Thugs and Harmony was back on the road as a full group again. Old wounds never fully disappear, but they learn to work together without letting old arguments derail them. In interviews, they now talk openly about how much they've grown, not just as artists, but as men. They still disagree, still fight sometimes, but the love that brought them together in Cleveland has kept them from splitting apart for good. Today, Bone Thugs and Harmony tour the world celebrating their legacy. They've buried the hatchet from that infamous night, not by pretending it didn't happen, but by understanding why it did. Bizzy still walks his own path. He sometimes skips tours to focus on solo work, but the bond is stronger now. When they share the stage, the energy feels like family again. The fight that night was ugly, but was also human. Bone Thugs were never a manufactured act. They were brothers, friends, and survivors who rose from the streets to global fame. The same passion that made their harmonies so powerful also made their tempers volatile. In the end, that authenticity is why fans still love them. They've been through everything: poverty, prison, addiction, betrayal, and somehow, they're still standing together. And if you ask them now about that night when Bizzy stormed off stage, they'll probably laugh. Not because it wasn't serious, but because they survived it. Because they know that even at their worst, Bone Thugs and Harmony is family first.